So I'm understanding you are quite clear that how we are going through this one. We see, I think, around 25-ish participants we have so far. So as I was saying, we're expecting a few more. So
we have 33 already joining, and I think the rest will be joining already. So no worries. I keep contacting them.
Okay, so we can start then, is it?
Yes, and it's recording already. So
okay. Okay. So you might have gone through different parts of the research project and how to develop this one. So I'll try to help you to understand how you should design your research work, maybe the whole dissertation. And later on, if you continue in developing any research project, you can work on through this way. Definitely there are different other materials which certainly can help you. My name is Mujahid Mohiuddin Babu. I've been in this business school for around more than 3 years, near about 4 years. So I'm national professor in marketing in this school, and I graduated from Manchester Business School in marketing. Then I came here and started working with our in this school. I have, although in my PhD in Manchester, I mostly worked in quantitative, but later on I had to move into qualitative, so and mixed method. So I am probably one of those few people who actually had to go through both qualitative and quantitative. The reason I say this because I found out in many cases there is a kind of a cold war between the quantitative researchers or qualitative researchers. However, if I find out it's very quite supportive because I can get the benefit of both qualitative and quantitative when we go through the research. So for your project, because you have a very small span of time to create the project and deliver this one, so sometimes you might be finding it very difficult to combine both of them. However, if you can do this one, certainly that will enrich your overall research idea. Uh, throughout these today's session, I understand you probably have gone through different other lecture sessions, so you definitely have been bombarded with so much information, and definitely there are many the textbooks which can help you in understanding those information. I'll try to share my experience, what when I do research, when I did research, how I designed my whole work, and how that actually helped me, what mistake I made, so that, or also I will share some of these mistakes from my students when they did their PhD dissertation. I'll be sharing this one when I move through those our presentation slides today. We all know today we'll be focusing on the research design, which will focus on the inductive and whether deductive method, some other research approaches, including the exploratory, descriptive, or causal research, and broadly the research design, which you can select based on your research topic, and obviously the theoretical framework. And as a ground rule, you know that you have kept your headphone, this microphone and camera off. But any question, anytime, just wave your hand. Probably I can see this one, although I'm sharing my screen, so probably I can see that one as well. Or if I can't see, just turn on your microphone and can ask me question. I'll be happy to answer that one. Don't wait for till the end. I want it to be more interactive because I'm just listening some kind of sure sound, but I'm not sure whether you can. I hope you can listen to me quite well. I'm sure you probably have seen this image, and this is probably one of the most used research images when we try to share the research experience with our fellow students or early stage fellow researchers. We call it a research onion and copied from taken from Saunders' textbook, which is really a very good textbook. If you wish, you can have a look on this one. Let me just take a pen. Okay, in today's one, we'll mostly focus on strategies, what one you are going to go for, and obviously the approaches, how that is being first. I'm not sure whether you have gone through the philosophies, but I assume you have some idea, like whether you're going for positivism, which is more of a kind of talking about some kind of scientific method or more of a quantitative research. On the other hand, you have some kind of interpretive research. So philosophies, which might not be that much significant at this stage of the research, but definitely they pose some importance when we do the research philosophy. Driving through that way, I'll focus on today what kind of approaches you can go for, whether it's a deductive or inductive one, and which will lead you to find out the research strategies. And obviously, the central point you actually drive through, the more focused and more confident you are throughout your whole research journey. Because each of the research points, research strategies will dictate should you go, what kind of data collection you should conduct, what kind of analysis you will actually carry out, and eventually the whole research structure. Broadly, this is the research process. At the very beginning of this one, we feel as a researcher that what is the problem we're going to address. If it is a professional research, that's one thing. If it is not a professional research or it's kind of an academic outcome, then another point. So first of all, we think about our problem. We need to understand what problem we are dealing with. Then we refine the problem through different exploratory way. We just try to find out whether our problem that we have found out, if there is a kind of a solution in existing literature, or if there is any kind of a problem happening around other part of the industry, or in a different industry cases, or in a completely different part of the geographic location. Either way, that will give us an idea with how we should refine that problem. You might feel that I'm just starting a little backward, because you might have been lectured about this problem formulation, because I just wanted to start a bit back so that we can have a review of our early understanding and then move on to our main point, that is this part right here, the research design right here. Sorry. Look, I'm trying to have the pen keeping it as it is, but not sure how long it can be. Okay, mostly, as I said, we'll focusing on this part. So after we formulate the problem, then we confirm that problem, that okay, this is the thing I'm going after. Okay, a common thing like this one, the employees are dissatisfied. Why they're dissatisfied? That could be definitely pay could be one of the issues. That could be health issues. That could be work environment issues. There could be many other issues. So how that has to be finalized. Certainly we can go after the secondary data, other research activities, which will eventually finalize that is a problem right here. When we are actually confirmed about the problem, then we know whether we are making that we are going through the perfect way or not, and that will be decided when we decide the research design. The sampling, this part, which is mostly about when you go for quantitative research or kind of survey design, if not otherwise, we do some kind of sampling even we are going for qualitative research, but don't worry about this. But it's not only for the quantitative one. Sometimes we do for qualitative research as well. Maybe in case of qualitative research, you don't do this kind of detailed sampling, but we do definitely some kind of sampling at this stage. And then we go after collection. And this part remains almost same for whether we're going for in qualitative or quantitative research. I'll come back to this one once I travel you through the rest of the slides. Then probably a further discussion or further idea can give you on this point. I assume you don't have any question. I'm not sure, because I see that probably you don't have any issues. I'm not sure. Let's see if you can, as I say, if you have any question, please. Just wave your hand or idea. Otherwise, I'm definitely talking to screen of and some numbers and some.
Hello? Hi, hello.
Yeah, hi.
I can't really speak what you're saying. You're a bit too fast for me to understand. I'm sorry.
Okay, so if I understand, I can't hear you properly. Are you asking? Am I speaking a bit faster? So you want me to slow it down?
Yes,
This.
yes, yes,
Okay,
yes.
sure. Thanks. Or as you said that I spoke a bit faster. So anything that you want me, any of you want me to repeat from the previous slides? Anything that you want me to repeat from the previous slides, don't hesitate. Although I'm lecturing one way, but I would appreciate it if it is in kind of an interactive session.
No, I think I'm fine. I was following you as you're talking, but it's just a bit difficult to pick up one or two things you say.
Okay, I'm sorry for that one, but as you said, so far is fine. And if anyone else has any question like that, I should repeat from the previous slide. So from this one to this one, I'll be happy to this one. Anyone? Okay, as no question. Okay, assuming so far going well. Okay. When you have a research approach, we can make it more confirm by saying it whether it's an exploratory research, descriptive, or a causal research. Underneath each of them, there is a kind of a statement of the problem, whether I know the problem or whether I do not know the problem, or whether I am completely confirmed about the problem. If I'm not sure why this thing is happening, why my employees are not satisfied, why my sales is declining, why the advertisement is not working, why the customers are not making any repeat purchase. So I'm not sure. So what is this? So first of all, it could be like this one. I'm completely unaware of the problem. So I do not know the underlying reasons. It could be anything. So at that stage, we need to go very deep into the situation, and that formally it is known as the exploratory research, where we are completely unaware of the problem. The main idea is to explore, discover the reasons which is actually creating the phenomena. So we know the phenomenon, we know the symptoms, but we do not know what are the underlying causes. So to know the underlying causes, we go for that exploratory research. The main objective is to identify the problem. So that is the finding right here. So in many research cases, when we do some research, sometimes the main objective is to just to identify the problem, not the finding the solution. So at that stage, the main objective of the research is to identify what are the underlying causes. So that is called exploratory research. And some of the cases we use the interviews, we interview the expert people, sometimes the academics, sometimes the industry expert people, the practitioners who are within the same industry or who have some knowledge in that part. And if we don't find that the people are right here quite knowledgeable, we just observe why these things are happening right here, what is the issue. And some in many other cases we some archival data or secondary sources. The main objective of this case, exploratory research, is to just to identify the causes, the underlying reasons. Once we know the problem, and once we are aware of this part, so we know the problem. Now it actually leads us to the next one. What should we do this problem? How to find a solution for that problem? So we know now we know the problem. How to find a solution for that problem? So we now look for kind of a more realistic, more outcome-based research in this case. So that is called the descriptive research. More of a we explain the situation, more of an explanatory situation, with being aware of the problem. Now we define the market, we characterize the market, I try to find out what are the probable solutions in that case. So we knew earlier the sales is declining, employee productivity is declining, and at the exploratory stage, we have identified some reasons. Could be the competition has increased, that's why our sales is declining. Could be our product is faulty, that's why it is declining. Maybe the retailers are not supporting, that's one reason. So we have identified the problems at this stage. Now we are actually finding out what is the number one problem, or what is the key problem that we should address at this stage. So the common tool that we use in this case is the survey. We actually ask or make a kind of ask questions or survey the respondents in that particular industry, the customers, the employees in that case, to identify whether they like our product. If not, why don't they like? Why are not they making first purchase or the repeat purchase? That is the case in case of descriptive research. Causal research, or we call mostly case of call it a experimental research. It happens in cases actually scientific research when we know the cause, which is actually affecting that one. There is a common relationship in business and marketing that if you put more budget for promotional activities like advertisement, sales promotion, PR, public relations activity, or any other promotional activity, it's supposed to increase the sales revenue. So that's a kind of a defined relationship, causal relationship. The cause is right here, is the advertisement or the promotional activity. If we put more budget on the promotional activity, it will actually lead to increase the sales revenues. So that is a kind of a clearly defined relationship. Now, we want to understand that will they buy more of our, so how is that going to affect, so which advertising is actually affecting. So now we are actually doing some kind of experiment. We are showing customers 10 advertisements and asking them which one is actually influencing them to buy more. It could be in a direct approach, or you can follow different other way. So the main issue right here in causal research is we now know the X variables, which will trigger the Y variables. Now we're actually making a kind of an experiment to what extent X is actually leading to Y. How much budget should you put on for the advertisements to increase the customers, increase the overall sales revenue? Or in a different way, we actually, what kind of things we should put on to increase the employees' productivity? So more of a cause and effect relationship activity we do in case of causal research. I'll pause for a second right here, a few seconds. If anyone has any question, please, I'd be happy to answer it up to these points.
Hi. Could you go over the causal research again?
The causal one?
Yeah.
Okay, the causal research. One of the reasons is that a famous crisp company, about that packaging, they tested this one, which actually is, we all know that what's happening, what's inside the crisps packages. The package is quite inflated, almost 60% of the package is full of air, and rest of the 40% is actually full of the crisp, like potato, whatever the crisp main item is. But to attract the target customers' attention, it's actually full of different kind of colors, how much colorful it should be. So the research is right now, how much color is actually triggering it out more sales revenue. You hardly find any crisp packaging made of kind of dull color like gray or kind of a very light gray or something other, not so flamboyant, very radiant colors. Crisp packaging is obviously always some kind of full of very colorful packages. So companies test here what kind of colors is triggering the customer's attention more. So customers can see this one from quite a far long distance. So the research right here is the audience, the people, the respondents or the sample people are given 4 or 5 color choices, and those packages have been kept right here. So we're asking the customers to go and pick up one from those 5 packages. So whichever actually they're picking up, that is actually indicating that they're preferring that way. So cause is right here, the color choice, and which is actually affecting the customer's preference and eventually customers' purchasing behavior. So this is the way we want to see which factor is causing the customer to behaving in a certain way. This is more of a causal research. In a scientific manner, if you have any scientific background, we all know what we did some experiments in labs. We combine different chemicals to see the reactions and find out what is the chemical reaction, the outcome. And every time for 2 oxygens and 1 unit of hydrogen will lead to water. That is the established one. So that is the outcome of the experience. In scientific cases, the experiments results are almost in 99% cases the same. However, in social research or business research, it might not be the same because we are dealing with human behavior. Still, we try to find out what are the factors that trigger out what actually causes the outcome. Anyone else having, does it answer your question, or anyone else have any other question, please? Okay. If not, then moving on. There's 2 other research approaches we can see, that the deduction and induction. By the way, just to ask you, have you gone through this one, the research approach, deduction and induction? Can anyone please say yes or no something? I mean, covered is it covered since yesterday? Okay, not sure. Is anyone saying something now? Okay, assuming not. Okay, deduction is more about how things are happening. So you have a theory in your mind. You have a theory in your mind, and now you just want to prove that one. You have a theory in your mind that that when you will be doing the dissertation, you'll find out lots of theories right here. So the common theory could be that if you increase the capability of the employees, it will improve the performance. So common understanding. And it could be the dynamic capability theory and resource-based views. So if the companies have enough resources, and if they capitalize this one, that will bring in some kind of outcomes. So that could be one theory. So there are definitely many other theories in different management perspective. You have the theory in your mind, you know what is going to this one. Based on the theory, you develop some provable statements, which you call hypothesis. So that will lead, and you do some kind of observation. It's kind of a, you collect the data here, and by examination, it means you are analyzing the data. So this part is more about the data collection and analysis part. So based on the theory, you formulate a statement, and now you are proving that one, whether that's true or false. So that's the deduction. So you have the theory. Now mostly you're doing it right here, testing the theory. On the other hand, induction, you are developing the theory. As I said in earlier stage, you have the dynamic, you are trying to formulate dynamic capabilities. The reason is dynamic capability has an impact on the organization's performance, and you are going to confirm or reconfirm that one. That is the deduction. In induction, we are now trying to develop a theory, how the organization can develop or improve their dynamic capabilities. So there should be dynamic capability theory. We want to see what are the factors that can develop, that can influence the organization to develop that dynamic capabilities, because we want to prove that dynamic capability will lead into something positive or phenomenal for the organization. So now we are actually trying to develop a theory. So it's more of a theory development stage, induction method. We get, without any theory, it starts directly from collection of data. We collect the data, do some analysis, we collect the data, we do some analysis, and we observe and the point is that when we're trying to develop a theory, we cannot rely only one source of data. The reason is that maybe from one source of data that is quite significant and quite successfully supportive. However, in different other situation, it might not be the case. So it's a kind of issue of generalizability. So you need to check this one in multiple scenario to develop a theory. So developing a theory, it's a very rigorous job, rigorous research. In induction method, we try to do that one. We try to develop or formulate a theory. So that's the induction. In your dissertation, most of the students so far I have found, they actually go for that. They try to apply the deduction method, because considering your time frame and resources that you have, it is quite easier and deliverable to go for any kind of deduction based approach for your research. Because if you go for inductive method, induction based research, it actually takes quite a long time. Any questions so far?
I have a question.
Yes, please.
So my dissertation, I hope to do just secondary data.
Yeah.
Is there any advantages or disadvantages for using either deduction or induction?
If we use secondary data, first of all, I personally didn't find any disadvantage. When I supervised a few students who actually used completely archival data or secondary source of data. And I was quite happy that they got their deserving and expected grade. Obviously, like you, in the very beginning, they were kind of indifferent and skeptical whether secondary database research will give them the idea, because we don't, to be honest, when I supervise, I don't judge the project based on whether this is a secondary database, it's a qualitative database or quantitative database. What I see, I think many of my colleagues will agree with this one. We see how the research is being formulated, what is the problem they're going to, the student is going to deliver, address, and is it suitable for the secondary research, and finally, how the research has been positioned. If it is suitable in that way, it actually is being treated based on merit. And probably throughout this research, I can show you some of my work, some of other works where we actually did this kind of research completely based on secondary research, and we published in some of the top tier journals. Does it answer your question?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, and probably you also mentioned whether it's an induction or deduction method. Probably for secondary research, it's a more of an induction based, because you are it could be induction based or it could be deduction based as well. To be honest, it depends on how you're actually positioning your research or how you're actually formulating the problem.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other question from any question, guys? Okay, if not, moving on. I also made some comparative analysis, so more of a theoretical. So if you want to have a look on this one, you can go whatever I have just said, that is being mentioned right here. So I'll actually I'll give it for a minute to all of you just to have a skim through this one in case any of the wordings, phrases is not clear to you. Grace, you raise your hand. Any question, Grace? I can see Grace raised her hand. So, any question from you, or any question from any other person? If not, then we are moving on. As I was saying to earlier question that whether it's deductive or inductive, the bottom line is that if you have a topic which is supported by quite a good amount of literature, there's by literature, by the way, by literature we mean the previous work. It means previous research activity, and that's the must for when you do a research. When you define a problem, obviously you must confirm whether there are some other people who actually have carried out any research related to this one or not. If they have done something and they have come out with a very successful result, certainly your research problem either being answered or should not be carried on for a further research, because there is nothing new in your research. So you have to check out whether your topic has been addressed in previous research activities, and if you can develop a theoretical framework and hypothesis, I think that should be the deductive one. So you have a good background study, you have a good information, quite a wealth of literature, and you can formulate some hypothesis and a conceptual theoretical framework that you can prove. Then you can go for a deductive. So based on these things, you actually can go for deductive method, do the data collection and analysis. And this one is quite intuitive, you're going for inductive method because this is completely new research. You don't know how we're going to do this one. Although I can share my experience right here. Although I'm in marketing, but very off late, like in the last couple of years, I actually have tried to shift my research focus in more of a technology-based impact on marketing, more of an artificial intelligence, big data analytics, how they're influencing the marketing or the company's business behavior, not specifically marketing, overall business approach. So when you started studying artificial intelligence, and we try to do a deduction-based research, like a kind of we wanted to do some kind of survey and do some kind of see how this artificial intelligence is influencing the customer to make some choice or impacting their consumers' behavior. But we didn't find any proper way, we call it a scale. We could not develop a survey for an artificial intelligence based research based on artificial intelligence. So then we realized this is completely a new topic. So this is a new topic, and area is new. Artificial intelligence in business definitely is new. Artificial intelligence has been in the arena for quite a long time, but in business it's definitely very, very new. And we have a very, very limited literature. That's why we could not continue our survey based, deduction based work. We had to go back to the inductive based work on artificial intelligence. So that is the scenario right now, and that happened almost all the cases. Now the experience that I'm sharing with you, that is actually happening back in early stage of 2019, so almost 1.5 years ago. Now it is almost after 1.5 years, now we see there are so many other research going on in artificial intelligence who have developed some kind of survey-based research, deduction-based. Now, if we want to do any kind of artificial intelligence-based research, we can go for survey-based one. So that is the difference between deductive and inductive. So based on your problem, you define the problem, confirm the problem. Now you see whether it's completely a new area or if it's not a new area, then you can go for deductive or inductive approach. If you have any question, anytime you can interrupt me, don't worry about that one. Now going to just a theory and theoretical formulation. I'll just for a specific one. I'll not go for a very detailed discussion on this one. You are, by theory, we mean it's a kind of an assumptions or a kind of an facts which have been accepted in the society or in the business arena, and which explains some kind of relationship among the in a situation. So theory states something that it's an assumption or actually a fact which can explain, which have the explanatory power of some outcomes in a given context or given situation. So that's the theory. So a theory may not be applicable in many cases, but it definitely will be applied in certain cases. For every research, there is supposed to have a theoretical framework which will talk about, which will cover the previous research activity in that part and will lead on what are the factors, what are the issues, or what are the hypotheses, or what are the possible outcomes it actually can generate. For your dissertation, you can we are expecting, because all of your postgrad students, we're expecting that you can at least suggest a conceptual framework or a theoretical framework when you design a post-graduation level dissertation. But for undergrad, we probably are a bit lenient in that case, but in case postgraduate cases, we expect that you can formulate you can suggest a theoretical framework. So when you find a problem after this one, when you confirm the problem, now to find out what is the theory that is supporting that one. And trust me, definitely there would be some kind of theory, at least one or two theories which will actually support the whole problem in that case. In my cases, it may vary from researcher to researcher. Many of my colleagues would disagree on this one. How I work in that case, once my problem is being formulated and the confirm that I'm going to find a solution or I'm going to conduct a research on this one, I look for the theory thereafter. It's not that first we look into the theory, then we go for the problem. No, I don't think in that way, because it actually takes quite a lot of time and may not be suitable for that problem formulation. That's why I first look for the theory. I first look for the problem formulation. Then I look for the probable theory or theories, maybe a couple of theory in that case, how that can actually solve the issue or can bring a probable solution. I look for that one. When you develop a theoretical framework, some suggestions, we can look into this one. What is the title and what is the problem you're looking into? First of all, you definitely need to have a grip on your problem. You know, this is the problem I'm actually trying to answer. In many cases, it happens that you start with the problem, but when you carry out a research, then you find out there is some other unanswered questions which probably you can answer through your research. That's definitely a blessing in that case. The problem is that you would had the problem in your mind, you conducted the research, but you could not find a solution to this one. That would be a nightmare, to be honest. That definitely would be a nightmare, because when you do a research, definitely you not only invest your money, your time, and quite a good effort. And if you cannot find a solution, definitely it would be a nightmare how to explain that one. So it has to be very, very clear what problem or problems you're going to address. The second stage, go deeper. When you define the problem, go kind of deep, go very deeper. You can do some brainstorming, further studying to see what are the factors that are actually making this kind of problem. What are the issues underlying that problematic situation? And to get a grip on this one, obviously the review of literature is the key factor right here. If there is a literature, if there are some previous studies, certainly they are worth of looking into. Not only worth of you must do this one. Without looking into previous literature, you must not proceed. You must not proceed, because you definitely might miss something which have been suggested or advised in the previous literature. That's why when you have the problem in your mind, by this time you may have a dim idea or rough idea what are the probable areas you are going to do for your dissertation. If you have this one, start searching in Google Scholar or any other scholarly search engines to find out what are the previous researches in that case. Then find out what are the variables. By variable, we mean that I'll come back to this one. Let's proceed with okay, I hope you can see this screen. So this is our recent paper. It's published just this, I mean, it's supposed to publish in next month, is September. It's supposed to publish in next month. So, I mean, it's been online, but it's supposed to be in next month. So when we say reshaping competitive advantage with analytics capabilities in service systems, so we have this title in mind, and here we develop some kind of concept. So one concept is definitely the competitive advantage. So competitive advantage is one factor, how the companies develop the competitive advantage. And another point is service. And another point is service system. There are two things. It's not the same thing. Service system is a combination of different organizations, how the service is being created and delivered. So we have to think about from a concept of service system. And analytics, then we have the capabilities. And how do you define reshaping? So that's another factor. So these are the points. These are the points actually eventually lead to the development of different concept, construct, and literature review. So we have to go very deep into the literature to find out what each of the factors are and how that is going to influence. Anyone having any questions so far? Okay, if not, carrying on. After you got the constructs and variables, the concept idea, now we're going to going for the social science, different social science theories. It could be, I said dynamic capabilities theory, but there could be many other theories or many other theories which is influencing. So as researcher or researcher team, you have to find out what are the probable theories that can explain the situation, And based on this one, finally, you make some kind of assumptions and hypotheses and propositions, which you're going to prove later on. So thus you actually overall constitute your theoretical framework. Obviously, if you look into some of the research papers, published research papers, that will give you an idea how they have formulated that one. Some of them explained in detail, some of them just have mentioned in that, but it has to be there. That's the point. The theory has to be there. Otherwise, you cannot produce a good quality research output. Anyone having any questions so far? Okay, this is the kind of a statement I would like to share with the students or the other researchers, that definitely the theoretical framework will come out after you do a very rigorous literature review. Obviously, it's based on your research problem. Anyone having any question other? Okay, if not, then moving on. You might have heard this thing, qualitative and quantitative research. As I said in the very beginning, that people in the research field are divided in two groups: qualitative researcher, quantitative researcher, and there's sometimes not a cold war, it's a kind of a different approach, different perspective. However, they have their own agenda. I mean, the research has own application. For example, in qualitative research is more about exploratory research, and quantitative research is more about quantitative research more about causal research, and more about, say, descriptive research, whereas qualitative research is more about exploratory research. You are actually discovering any problem, explore the situation, what is the idea right here, what are the underlying causes there. And by unstructured, we mean that it is open. You don't know how the research is going through, in what way it is actually going after. It can go in either way, it can lead to in either way, and it is free from any kind of constraint, because when we collect the data in case of qualitative research, we try to make it open, because we don't know how the outcome, how the things can come up, and how the things can shape in future, because we don't know anything. We are just only know there is a problem, but we don't know what are the underlying causes. That's why it is called unstructured and free from any factors, any points. However, quantitative research is, we know what we are doing. So it's more like we follow a structured pattern. We have the questionnaire in mind. We'll ask only those questions. We'll not ask any other question. It's not an open-ended situation. It's completely a closed-ended situation. And about the researcher's independence, it case that it's subjective assessment. We let the respondents say whatever they feel. We do not make it, we do not confine it, and we probe the respondents in a very detailed way. Maybe I'm discussing with the respondent for 1 hour, so it's more of a, and I also basically talk to those guys who actually kind of know, or I actually try to develop an understanding, so I know this person can give me a detailed idea. And on the other hand, quantitative research is more of data based, quantitative number based. We use small samples for the qualitative research, exploratory. Sometimes we do not use any samples, particularly for the secondary database. We do not use any samples. We just go through the secondary research. But if it is an interview, if it is a case study, if it is an observation, probably go for a small sample. Whereas in quantitative research, we try to use large samples. By large samples, we statistically say more than 30, but practically it has to be, the higher the number it is, the better it is. However, there is a term called saturation point, which is applicable for both the cases. Saturation point for qualitative and quantitative research. That means after that point, the additional input to the data is very difficult to say, and this is more applicable for a qualitative, although we see in a quantitative research as well. So sample size normally in case of qualitative research is smaller, but qualitative is definitely higher than, although statistically it says 30, but practically it should be few hundred to give you a good response, provided that there is a good population size. Anyone having any question, anything I should repeat, or if I'm speaking faster again, I'm sorry for that one. Please, I'm saying, don't hesitate to stop me and interrupt me. I'd like to answer your questions anytime. Okay. research design now. Okay, if now we are going into the research design. It's a plan, in a word. When we say research design, it's straight away it's a plan about how we're going to do the research. You have the problem defined, you have the problem confirmed, you have developed the theoretical framework done. Now, how we're going to do the research? It's more about a practical part of the research. By how, we mean that how we're going to collect the data and how logical that is. When I came for my PhD in backend, so because when we do the PhD, we started by exchanging the PhD research proposal, problem formulation, and everything. When I was talk with my supervisor, she was telling me, well, this problem is fine, you can go for this one, absolutely fine. And when I came to meet her for the face-to-face, the main point, although initially I told her that what's the data collection plan, and when I told her again how we're going to collect the data, analyze the data. So that was the main question when we think about any research. So we know the problem, we know, because after a few years of research experience, now when we see the problem, we get the idea, okay, this is probably the research design we're going to apply. And how are you going to collect the data? How difficult it would be? Who will collect the data? Do you need money? How much money? How much time you have? Another point is, can you in person collect the data, or will you have to hire a researcher or a third person or a market research firm? Can you access the actual respondents? Okay, so these are the questions you have to ask. If you collect the data online, are you sure, how much sure you are that the actual people, actual respondents are filling up that survey? It is not any kind of computer generated program that is filling up that survey. So how do you sure of this one? How much budget you are actually going for allocating? So all these things you have to think about at this stage. If you think that, okay, let's see, sometimes we say this once when you do some kind of meeting, okay, let's see how things roll, and then we actually make a decision. Probably in this case, in case of research design, you definitely have to have a clear plan, have to have an idea, and have to be able to see to the end of the tunnel. Okay, this is my problem with my hand. I am going to do a survey-based research, and these are my probable respondents, probably 250 respondents. I'm going to ask these questions. I myself will do this one within a month, within the 3 weeks of time. And after I collect the data, and during the data collection, I will give some kind of incentive, or will not give some kind of incentive, or share any gift, whatever the plan is. Then I'll be doing the data analysis. So this is the plan you have to have in your mind. And as I say these things, when you have that research design, you're designing the research activity, obviously it is backed up, it is supported by your problem definition and your theoretical framework, which is also supported by your literature review. So it's a more of a chain. You have the problem in your mind. Okay, I'm going back to the slides. That's why I started with this one. Although we call it a research design, I'm trying to talk to you about the research design. But that talks about rest of the part. At this stage, you need to be sure about how you are going to deliver this part. So in your case, you need to break down your time. So when are you going to formulate the problem? When is your deadline? If it is deadline if it is a 12 weeks project, and if your deadline is after 12 weeks, for first couple of weeks, what are you going to do? Then what? So you have to make a breakdown of this one. Once you actually have clearly defined the problem, then we do this. Maybe within 1 month, you are quite clear with your problem and started doing the literature review and have formulated the problem. And now we are going for collection of data. How are you going? What kind of research design you are having? Qualitative, quantitative. If it is qualitative, then one way. If it is quantitative, then is another way. And how are you going to collect the data? Are you going to collect the data in person, which is quite difficult in current COVID-19 situation? So how are you going to collect the data online? How many? If you don't get the response in time, what is the backup plan? So everything you have to keep in mind at this stage. Okay, you have targeted 200 respondents, but if you do not get these 200 respondents by the end of 2 weeks, what is your backup plan? Are you going to how are you going to boost up your activity? So these are the things you need to plan when you are doing the research design. And another point is data analysis. What kind of data analysis are you going for this one? If it is a quantitative data, we expect as your supervisor, PG supervisor or examiner to see that you are doing some kind of statistical analysis. And what statistical analysis? Not very basic one. We want to see you're seeing some kind of regression analysis or advanced regression analysis, or if it is possible, structured regression modeling. So this you need to be very clear at this stage. And how long do you need to write up that report? You always have to have a backup plan. Why? You did the data collection, that's fine, it went well. What if it doesn't go well? So you have to have a backup plan. So assuming your data collection is done very smoothly, or even after glitches, data collection is done. You did the data analysis. Have you got your desired outcome? You got a problem here. Does this analysis support this one? Yes or no? If it is no, what's your backup plan? How are you going to write down the whole report? If you write down that I developed some hypothesis and none of them was actually proved, we definitely will raise questions. Definitely. Either what was the problem? Either your research is quite a novel research, nobody has been able to do that one, or there has been some problem somewhere. You definitely have to have a backup plan in that case. And always remember you have a deadline in mind, and you have to write down that one, maybe a few thousand words, 10, 12,000 dissertation report, you have to write it down. So everything you have to plan at this research design stage. That's why you call it a master plan. Any question so far? Okay, if not, I'll proceed. Okay, so research design, first of all, data collection. These are the common methods of data collection. You can pick any one of them or multiple of them, depending on your research problem that you are going to approach. Generally, we at this stage, if it is, definitely there has to be one method. Not as, by the way, someone asked you about the secondary data. So this is the archival research. This is based on the secondary research. However, all the methods are supported by secondary research. I'll go through each of them and see how these things roll on. Experiment. This is simply the causal research. You have although it is mostly happening in natural sciences, physics lab or in chemistry lab or in biology lab, you can see this one. But nowadays in business cases, we also see this one. We want to see how customers or how the probable customers behave in a certain way, whether they behave in a positive way, what are the cues? If they see a certain celebrity in a promotional activity, whether they will make more purchase or not, and how does the color affect their brand's perception, or for an employee situation, what kind of training or what kind of factors motivate the employees to perform better. So we do some kind of experiments right here. That could be definitely, sorry, let me have a pen here. Okay. Explain. Sometimes mostly we use it for explaining something, how something is happening and why something is happening. Sometimes we want to explore something. If we mix up these things, does it really make any sense or not? So this is more about a causal research. In business, although we have a very, very limited research, but with this one, I shared one of my papers. So here we did some kind of research based on experiment method. So if you wish to, I actually gave you a downloadable link right here. If you wish, you can have it. You can go later on this one. So online, we want to see whether the customers make online reviews and whether that is mattered after you make a purchase. So you bought a product. After you purchase the product, so what kind of reaction you see when you see that the other people are reviewing this one positively or negatively? What kind of reaction do you say? So we used an experiment right here. We gave the respondents some kind of cues right here, so that see how they are reacting in that way. So this is an experiment research. So if you wish for your dissertation, you can go for a experiment-based research method. But as I said, it needs some kind of resources and some kind of expertise in conducting that one, obviously. Anyone having any question, don't hesitate to interrupt me any time, don't worry. And I hope I'm going at an understandable speed. If not, please inform me. Survey strategy. This is probably the most common research design that we use. So by survey, probably most of us have completed a questionnaire or any other form of survey. That is, we receive lots of email, lots of requests from our known people to participate in a survey. And survey has a wide range of application. It not only it answers different kind of research related questions. Why did something happen? What are the common phenomenon? Where did this thing come? How are you going to explain this one? Or any specific quantity, amount, anything could be explained through this kind of survey. And mostly it happens in kind of descriptive research, but sometimes we can get some kind of insight through survey when we use open-ended questions sometimes. For example, we ask the respondents if you have any preference for any particular brand, and we list them sometimes, and customers give the responses, and we also give them open-ended questions like, if you don't find any of the above options suitable, please write down your own option, own preference. Subsequently ask them, please explain why do you like or prefer that particular brand. So it's more of an open-ended question and asking the customer to give their own idea. In surveys, we have to have a questionnaire. We call it research. The research instrument is a questionnaire, and it is the researcher himself or herself can carry out that one, or can actually hire a research agency. In my case, in my PhD, I did my data collection from the UK, from the manager or senior level manager from the UK. So definitely, as a PhD graduate student from Manchester, I tried to do that one. I contacted several people. Several companies, I mean thousands of emails I sent them. Only 100 or less than 100 actually have responded, so that was not good enough. So what I had to spend money, and I had to hire a market research firm, and that was really expensive to collect my data. So you can do it yourself, or you can hire a third party depending on your resources or the research situation you have. And when you have a survey, it is expected that you will be analyzing the data using any kind of statistical tool, whether it's inferential statistics or the descriptive statistics. Descriptive statistics mean that you are just explaining something like average or standard deviation, median, this kind of values of your whole data set, or frequency, how many times a certain value actually have appeared. So this kind of thing. And inferential statistics refer to how the certain phenomena could be explained, how the two variables are correlated, whether the one variable is actually causing or affecting the another variable, what kind of score you can get, how one is reliable or not. So these kind of things we're expecting that when you do a survey, what will you do with the survey data? Definitely you have to explain that one. And let me share another example. Hopefully I can do that one. I'm going for another screen right now. This is another of my research paper. I published this on Journal of Strategic Marketing. This is part of my PhD there. So in this is completely a survey-based research. So here I want you to see the firm's customer orientation, how much that is influencing the performance. Can anyone tell me, can you see this one, please? I'm sharing a screen of Journal of Strategic Marketing, one research paper. Are you seeing this one?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. The main problem we're trying to achieve, address how the firm's customer orientation impact the performance, and we also see whether there is kind of an interaction. If you are not happy, aware of this kind of construct like customer orientation, interfunctional coordination, for the time being, please ignore it. I'm just trying to show you the overall research design approach that I adopted. So this is the model. Each of them is called a variable or a construct. So I wanted to see how customer orientation influences the customer-oriented performance, and whether it's employee commitment, customer contact time, interfunctional coordination, how that is moderating the whole situation. So that is the conceptual framework I developed. And based on the literature, I developed different hypotheses. This is a quantitative paper. I'll show you another qualitative paper as well, don't worry. So this is a quantitative paper. So I developed the hypothesis, and for every situation, I developed the hypothesis. So there are, I think, five hypotheses. And since this is a quantitative study, I collected the question data from these industry people. So managers and senior manager people. So something around 435 senior manager or manager actually have responded these questions. So this is the descriptive statistics. I did this one using SPSS. Probably someone asked a question whether we should use an SPSS or not. Yes, you can use SPSS. You can do the same analysis using Microsoft Excel. Either way, it is fine. It's up to you which one you are more comfortable with, which one you are more knowledgeable. And when we collect the data, when we do the regression, customer orientation, employee commitment, how are you going to explain this one to the audience? You have to ask them some questions. So I asked the customer managers these questions, whether they agree or disagree with this one. If they agree, they give 1 to 7. So on these data points from 1 to 7, they needed to rate their level of business activities, which is driven primarily by customer satisfaction. So these are called questionnaire item, and through this way we got the data and did some kind of, you see the descriptive analysis, statistics and correlation, mean, standard deviation, etc. We actually have carried out this one. And finally, now it's time, once I created the hypothesis, it's time to test that hypothesis, whether that is accepted or rejected. So I did this kind of moderation activities. Don't worry about this complicated statistic and analysis. I'm just telling you that if you have any kind of a survey-based design, you have to do at least some kind of statistical analysis. Maybe not this kind of advanced one, maybe very moderate level one, but you have to carry out a statistical analysis. Anyone have any questions so far? Okay, I'll come back to this one hopefully. Going back to the slides. Last point there is population versus sample. This is the key point. I'm not sure whether you are familiar with this one. Maybe definitely, maybe, but just to give you a heads up on this one, population is the total number of people in that whole category. So, for example, you know the population. For example, in this module there is 60 students, for example, and I want to get a data, get an idea, the average, for example, average age of these students. So if I can get the data from all the 60 students, so I'm actually approaching doing the census of the whole population, which sometimes, if not possible, I actually take a sample of 20 students from these 6 students and make a assumption. Now, the point is the sample must have to be representative of that population. That's the point. We call it representative. The sample must have to be very much representative of the population. The more representative it is, the better chance that you can generalize the conclusion finding on the population. So in my it's very difficult to generalize this, make it representative, because if it is a very, very big industry, it's sometimes very difficult to make us a representation out of this one, but you definitely have to try to make it as much representative as it is possible. So the relationship between population sample is the main point in research is that sample must have to be as much representative of population as possible. But if you say it is 10% representative, then we cannot actually take the conclusion generalizable for the whole population. Any question, please ask me. I'm moving on to the next one. So this is the example that I shared with you earlier. So this is a there is a link. So if you click this one, it will take you to this example. This is a quantitative paper. We did something similar to this one, just now I have showed one on Journal of Strategic Marketing, and this is in another top level Journal Technological Forecasting and Social Change, where we actually have this is a survey based paper. Case study, and now by case study it could be as the explanation shows right here, we are picking up a specific we want to explain a phenomenon using a real life context, but sometimes we use multiple sources or one single sources. In one of our case study research, we just picked up one department of work on organization. That organization has around thousands of employees, but that particular department is actually a kind of a merchandising department. There in that merchandising department, there is some roughly around 100 employees. So we looked into that 100 employees behavioral pattern, and because we gave them a questionnaire, they filled it up. And we also sat with around 30 to 35 respondents from that merchandising unit to see how these things work on a particular employee related behavior. So we picked up that department as a case study and told the whole organization that if you apply this kind of employee related factors or human resource related factors, that can be applicable for rest of the organization. So we picked up that specific department. So that is a case. So one department from one organization, and that could be again applicable for the rest of the department. You can do this research for a whole industry. You can pick up one bank, observe the banking situation right here, get close to this one, get the data collected through multiple or one method, which is quite reliable, and then once you get the finding and outcome, you can do the generalize. You can generalize this one for the rest of the organization's industry, provided that you actually have made the situation quite representative. So case study, you can pick up one particular unit or group of people from one particular unit just to represent that this is representative for the rest of the part. And you can get the data collected from through interview-based method or through survey or through observations or different other methods. There is another part called triangulation. When we collect the data through multiple ways, we actually try to see how these both stream of data complement each other or not. If they complement with each other, that's great. If not, then we need to see whether there is any lacking or whether there is a scope of new finding. So we triangulate. This is a very common word in case of research. We triangulate when we collect the data from multiple sources. So back to my example of that merchandising department, we did the survey of around 100 employees from that merchandising department. Then we sat with 30 employees one-to-one, not mentioning that this is your question you filled up, why did you do so? Yes, we did this one, but mostly we talked about in general that your department, merchandising department, think in this particular way. What's your thought in this way, whether that's true or whether you want to add something, is there any further insight or not? So we triangulated the finding from one stream of data with another stream of data to make it more complementary or supplement each other. Although this is not a case-based study, I put an example, not a direct case-based study, but this is a interview-based paper. So many of you might think about doing a qualitative paper based on interview. So this is an example. This is just published last month. Yeah, we published this one in another top-level journal, Industrial Marketing Management. But another point is that when you do your dissertation, you need to cite references from top-level journals, so that you actually come up with a very good finding and your problem formulation is quite robust. So this this is another qualitative paper. So I'll just look into this one to show you how these things work. Oh, got this one. I guess you can see me. If not, just let me know because it shows me the screen is being shared. So I assume it is being shared. Okay. So in this paper, Industrial Marketing Management, another top journal in, ABS 3-star journal in marketing. So this is a completely interviews-based paper in telecommunication and financial services sector from Bangladesh. So we want to see how value co-creation and social innovation is being related. And in case of qualitative paper, just like this one, we did quite a detailed literature review on this point. We found out the key factors like social innovation, strategic analysis, and alliances. So we did quite a detailed literature review right here. We did the value co-creation. So this is just literature review. I'm just taking you to the methodology part right here. So this is our whole research design. I'm not sure if you can see this one. Hold on a second. So this is our research design. This is our research design, as you can see on the screen. So we started everything. So we did the literature review, we did more idea about social innovations, and this was a straightforward way, but we did some additional factors right here because we said we needed to set up the whole research scenario, how we did this one, what are the academic issues right here, and finally what are the underlying factors right here. So this part is more about literature review. So after we did the literature review, we carried out the research methodology, which eventually told us how we're going to collect the data and what are the empirical findings we have and how is going to influence. And in our research methodology, epistemological stand, which is about positivism or interpretivism, what is it right now? For the time being, just forget it. So we adopted a qualitative method. We did use interview from these industries, software companies, retailers, digital financials. So these are the industries from where we actually picked up some industry experts. and we have the interview protocol. It means how are you going to conduct the interview, what questions are you going to ask them, and how long is going to do this one, whether you're recording this one, how are you going to transcribe this one. Everything has to be clearly mentioned. So once that is being done, so we did this research design, and obviously that included how are you going to interpret that finding, how are you going to use that finding to deliver. So that was the whole research process. You can look into this one. I just gave you the link on the PowerPoint, so hopefully that will be okay with you. Any question?
I have a question.
Yes.
So with a case study, as you said, you have to do like questionnaires and surveys. Could you do a case study just?
You can do any one of them.
I was wondering if you could do a case study on secondary data.
No, in that case, that will be completely a secondary database research or an archival research, to be honest. That's my understanding so far, because if you are trying to do a case study, so you have to pick up some, I think that would be more of a secondary based research, to be honest. It cannot be theoretically formulated under the case study.
Okay.
Okay, going back to the presentation. I also put another example of a pure case study base. So they picked up, so this is not our paper. So I just picked up from the Journal of Business Research. That is another 3-star level journal. So they when they actually analyzed for the stakeholder engagement process, they actually picked up a group of employees from a particular field or an organization. So I provided the link, so you can also able to see this one as well. If not, if you don't see, you should be able to download this one. If not, you maybe have to just put your university ID and it will take you to right there. Because the university subscribes Elsevier, so you should have a free access to this paper. Don't get afraid. Don't get scared having seen this one. This is just their idea or kind of a model how the stakeholder engagement can lead to co-creation of the process. They probably have developed this one based on literature review. It would be ideal if we see or you can create something from your literature review as well. Connection is quite poor right here. I'm sorry for that one. So just going back to this paper. So they actually have used a case study of probably an organization that I can remember, and they got the data from there. So this is a good paper. You can have a look on this one if you are planning for a case study. So they initially they explain why they actually have gone for a case study, why that is good for them, and why it is really important. Then they explain what kind of tool they used. In-depth interview they actually have used. They actually gone for depth interview, and they are actually collecting the data from SMEs from a non-intensive technology sector. So different SMEs they have picked up, and now they, after picking up the SMEs, they did some kind of interview from them. in the earlier qualitative paper that in my paper, so that I showed you, that is, we didn't focus on any specific industry. We picked up industries, experts from different industries, but however, they actually have picked up SMEs only from the non-intensive technology sector, and that they have provided further details. And for collecting the data, they have used interview, which is supported by initial secondary research. Going back to the present, our discussion, any questions so far? Okay, if not, another kind of research is called it an action research. It's more of a collaborative research between a researcher and a practitioner, or we call it more about a practitioner-based research, or a kind of a consultancy-based research. The company is having a problem. Now, how we're going to do that one? In my PhD level, we did this kind of research from one of the leading comparison websites. You know, the comparison websites that compare the market, Uswitch, Which, Money Supermarket. So these are the called comparison-based websites. So we did practitioner-based research or action research for them. Actually, that came to Manchester Business School through my supervisor, and she then, being her PhD student, I also participated in that research. So the company was having some kind of problem about the customers' responses, why the customers are not logging into their websites, and what is the issue, why are not they getting into number 1 position or number 2 position. So that is the situation they are having. So they came up with the problem to the researchers and try to find out how that thing can result into giving to some kind of an outcome. So action research. It actually is, the context has been given, that is, the customer's loyalty is under question. After diagnosis, the researchers said that, okay, from the diagnosis, it could be happen from literature, mostly from the literature, or from initial exploratory research. And after this one, they make a plan how they're going to do the research, and they they get the findings, they deliver the findings and suggest some actions to take, and then see how these things are working on. And it actually kind of repeats if there is no problem. So action research is more about trying to find a problem of a real life situation where the company organization collaborates with an existing researcher to diagnose a problem and to identify any probable solutions. Also, they have an academic value as well. In one of our my journal papers, we did this one with one of our leading telecommunication company in this country. So the company assigned the researcher team to find out a problem about their brand situation because they are not doing literally well. So the research team brought a solution to their research problem. However, with the permission, they produced an academic paper to be published in a marketing journal. That was not a 3-star journal, that was a 2-star journal, but still that's a very good journal to publish that action research. So action research are mostly a collaboration between a company and a researcher to find the immediate solution to an existing burning problem. Ethnography is more about related to anthropology. It's more related to anthropology, just to understand and explain the human behavior in its own setup. So by subject, we mean the human beings where they're living. So it's many of our colleagues in the School of Marketing Management do ethnographic research. I know one of our colleagues, she has done ethnographic research, and I knew one of my PhD friends, he did ethnographic research in Manchester United Football Club, how the fans work in that particular, behave in that way. Sometimes fans are quite fanatic about their football clubs, so how they are behaving in that way. So he did an ethnographic research on that Manchester United Football Club and try to find out how their behavior shape up the club's strategy and policy and everything. So how these things happen, in this case, researcher directly goes to the subject's living place. So that means right here. So The researcher goes where the subject lives and how the respondent is behaving in his own setup. And the researcher then observes the subject, takes an interview or try to take some note and then make some idea. It could be it could be face to face, but mostly it happens in the subject's own inhabiting places. I put on another example from an ethnographic research basis. So if you wish, you can have a look on this, and probably that will help you. I didn't do any ethnographic research. I just taken from another journal of World Business. This is published in 2015, and you can have a look on this one if that is of interest to you. Any questions so far? Okay, if not, archival research is more about secondary based research. Sometimes the problem, we know, we are confirmed about the problem, but we are not sure how to get a solution to this one. And there is no further, we need to go very deep into that problem. That's why we do very detailed literature review, explore the literature in detail as much possible as it is possible. Sometimes we go for administrative records or some kind of previous literatures. So that is all about archival research, more about the secondary based research. You can do this one if you wish. As I was asking to you, I think James asked me that question. So in his question, I said that if your problem requires, definitely every problem requires a kind of a detailed secondary research, but from your secondary research, you can find a solution. You can suggest some propositions, can create a conceptual framework that definitely could be a good dissertation. But again, it depends on your research problem and obviously your supervisor. You have to make a decision. I personally suggest many of my previous students to go for secondary research based dissertation, because the problem was suitable in that case, and that could be, and the outcome from the secondary research was quite phenomenal considering that situation. I put in a good example of it. This is they are my co-authors in other papers, so I know them quite well. And this is definitely one of the finest conceptual papers that have come through. Let's have a look on this one. Big data analytics and e-commerce, a systematic review and agenda for future research. As the title says, it's a systematic literature review, and it is completely based on academic literature, secondary data, academic literature and risk review. Systematic review. They didn't go for any kind of data collection from any respondents, any company. They just completely explored existing research papers, practitioner papers, industry papers that is related to big data analytics, e-commerce, and this is possible. The reason is that look at the paper time, 2016. The paper was published in 2016, and definitely assume that the paper has been written in 2015. So at that time, big data analytics was still in its infancy, so it is still at the developing level. So that's why in business literature it was very difficult to find relevant relevant supporting document to carry out any kind of survey, or interview could have been done, but a detailed, when the researcher, as I know these researchers well, so when I talked to them, they said that when we did this research, it was very difficult to get information, research findings on big data analytics. That's why they initially conducted detailed research from from different source academic papers and found out quite interesting and lot of information. If you ever go through this paper, you'll be found amazed that they actually have found lots of paper, and they actually provided a table for that one. And their research approach is was grounded in literature review, completely grounded on literature review. No other method they have adopted. However, they actually followed quite a detailed, rigorous method for carrying out that literature review, which we call a SLR, systematic literature review. And this is completely based on their literature review. They didn't do any other cases. Sorry. So they created different tables. So if you're planning to go for any kind of archival database research, we as examiners or supervisors expect that you'll produce a quite informative, rigorously reviewed literature-based paper in that case. Going back to the presentation slides, any question from anyone? Any question from anyone? Okay, not okay. You can adopt multiple research method. Yes, no problem with that one. It could be, so your research method could be based on simple one method, which we call it. It could be, most of the researches are based on one method. Whatever I have shown you so far is completely either based on interview, or another one is could be survey right here, or experiment. You can adopt multiple methods. Presently, I'm doing another research where we conducted the interview, where we actually did data. We collected the data from 3 different ways. Yeah, apart from the literature review. Yes, apart from the literature review, that's the call. We can call it a multi-method approach. We collected the data. This is from a refugee people. So and their access to the information technology, and how they use the information technology, mobile technology, for their life, and how that is contributing to their well-being. So we collected the data from those refugees, the refugee people, about interview, survey, and obviously we interviewed some expert people in that field, how that is influencing. By expert people, we mean the people who are dealing with anthropology, background, history, information system, then the mobile telecommunication company. So we adopted this multi-method study just to have a good grip onto that situation, how these things work. So yes, you can say that you can adopt multiple methods how to address the problem. And there is another called the mixed methods. There is a difference between multi-method and mixed methods. By multiple methods, we see you are just adopting different methods and just delivering the idea out of those 3 methods. In mixed methods, you have to combine both of them. The findings need to be triangulated and supported and complemented in case of mixed methods. Any question? Obviously, the common question, what is the best research design? I hope you understand there is no particular research design that you can say it is best. It depends on what kind of research problem you have, whether you want to go for deductive method, inductive method, or there's some kinds of ethical issues right there, with some of the research questions. You think that there is some research scope, but it's very difficult to get an ethical approval for doing in a situation. Obviously, you have to understand what kind of data you need, and do you have access to that data or not, and how are you going to collect the data, what kind of analysis you want to do. So, and this slide will indicate, if you need to find out, to be honest, you need to, when you will be deciding on what kind of research dissertation you're going to do, you need to design, you need to develop based on, you need to find out answer of these points. What's your research objective and problem? Yes, everyone will have to go through ethics application, no doubt about this. Whether you do secondary research, whether that my understanding, or you do primary research, I know that you have to go through this ethics research. You have to get ethics approval, whether you're doing even secondary research as well. Then what kind of data? By what kind of data, I mean, are you going for objective data, that is companies sales performance based data, that is real-time data? Or are you going for a big chunk of data from thousands of respondents, thousands of millions of data? Or are you going for huge text-based data which come out of interview method? So what kind of data you are going to collect, and how are you going to collect the data in this current situation, in this COVID-19 pandemic situation? Obviously, it's very difficult to get the data. So are you going to collect the data online, email, how? And importantly, how are you going to analyze the data? If it is a survey data, there will be some quantitative figures. Are you, it's an important thing, are you knowledgeable enough to run that survey based quantitative data? If not, you need to receive training. Yes, university, there is some area, I mean some arrangement in university where you can get training on SPSS, on any other statistical techniques, or you can self teach yourself and get that learning. So either, so you have to have an idea how to analyze the data. That's really important, because you've got the numerical data, SPSS, how you go to do that on SPSS. A simple descriptive analysis, as I said, in this stage would not be of good standard. You need to have a really some inferential analysis and statistical application. So that has to be done. Last point, resources and time. You have roughly 3 months to deliver this dissertation. Is it good enough to the research problem that you're thinking about while collecting the data, analyzing the data, and delivering the one? And if are you in a position to collect the data yourself? If not, how are you going to do this one? So resources, time, data, method, everything you need to consider when you come up with the final option that which research design is suitable for you. Also put on some other examples on this slide. I have emailed this one to Anna before. And I'll do this one again to her, and she probably will upload this one onto the Aula. So whenever you can download this one and see if this one is helpful for you, and put on some other. This is a qualitative paper. That is some quantitative papers I have put on. As these are most of the papers I put on from my own experience, because I shared my experience with you, and happy to share my experience further with you if it helps. And certainly you can see how I have done something, we do something that probably will be good for you. And that actually takes me to the end of today's, these sessions ending. So I put some references, and I also have mentioned some references as well. If you wish, you can have a look on this one. And I'm happy to, if you have any question, I'm happy to receive questions and respond. Okay, if you have any question, just turn on your microphone, or you can raise your hand. It's fine. On the chat, I see there is a question from Zheng. Yes, the sample size for a questionnaire normally, as I said, statistically sample size 30 will give you an answer, but is 30 good enough to give a finding of a phenomenon? It depends on the population you're picking up. If that is very exclusive population, exclusive people, exclusive company you are actually dealing with, in that case 30 could be one. But in your case, based on a research topic, your supervisor can give you a detailed idea what would be the optimum sample size or good sample size in that case. Anyone having any more question? Yes, Grace, you have, that means you have an access to this one. Just put down your email ID and password, the same password that you used to log into the school,